I stood there on the slopes of Mount Doom, watching Mr. Frodo hesitate at the edge of the fiery chasm, I couldn't have imagined the darkness that was about to engulf us all. The One Ring dangled from his fingers, its golden surface reflecting the hellish glow of the lava below. But instead of letting it fall, Frodo, he pulled it back. I'm Samwise Gamgee, and I was there when it all changed. I saw the glint in Mr. Frodo's eyes as he gazed at the ring, his hand trembling as he held it over the fires of Mount Doom. "The ring is mine," he declared, his voice barely a whisper. What follows is an account of the years that came after, of battles fought and lost, of friendships tested and broken, and of a darkness that threatened to consume us all. This is the story of how we fought to reclaim the light in a world plunged into shadow. The transformation was swift and terrible. As Frodo slipped the ring onto his finger, a change came over him. His eyes, once bright with determination, grew cold and distant. His form began to fade, becoming wraith-like, until he stood before me as a shadow of his former self. My dear friend had become the 10th Nazgul, a servant of the Dark Lord Sauron. With Frodo's fall, Sauron's power grew exponentially. The Dark Lord's armies, once held at bay by the last vestiges of hope, now swept across the land like a plague. Minas Tirith fell within a fortnight. The beacons of hope that once lit the mountaintops were extinguished one by one, plunging the world into darkness. Rohan followed soon after. Even the elven realms of Lothlorien and Rivendell were not spared, their ancient magic overwhelmed by the power of the One Ring. The Shire, once a peaceful haven untouched by the troubles of the wider world, now stood as the last bastion of hope for Middle-earth. Our rolling hills and cozy hobbit holes became fortresses, our gardens transformed into training grounds. It was a sight I never thought I'd see. Hobbits wielding swords and bows, preparing to defend their homes against the darkness that threatened to consume us all. As for me, I couldn't help but think of Frodo. Somewhere out there, leading the forces that sought to destroy us, was my best friend. The thought of facing him in battle filled me with dread, but I knew that if there was any hope of saving Middle-earth, of saving Frodo, I would have to find the courage to do what needed to be done. As the first dark clouds appeared on the horizon, signaling the approach of Sauron's armies, I gripped my sword tighter and steeled myself for what was to come. On the eve of battle, Aragorn stood before our assembled forces. His voice, strong and clear, carried across the crowd. "We stand here, at the edge of all we know, but we do not stand alone. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every free people of Middle-earth, and all that is good in this world. For the forests of Fangorn, for the mines of Moria, for the golden halls of Edoras, and for the simple comforts of a hobbit hole. For freedom, for hope, for light, and for a future free from shadow." The day of reckoning arrived with a blood-red dawn. As the sun crept over the horizon, it illuminated the vast army of Mordor, stretching as far as the eye could see. The air trembled with the sound of marching feet, the clash of armor, and the guttural war cries of orcs and other foul creatures. At the head of this terrible host rode the Nazgul, their black robes billowing in the wind, and among them, I could just make out a smaller figure, Frodo, or what was left of him. And so, it began. The clash of steel against steel shattered the morning silence as the two armies collided. Elven archers rained arrows upon the enemy, while the cavalry of Rohan, led by Oma, charged into the orc lines. Legolas and Gimli, inseparable as always, fought back to back, their contest of kills now a grim tally of survival. Merry and Pippin, no longer the carefree hobbits of old, led a company of Shire folk in daring raids against the enemy flanks. And there was Gandalf, a beacon of light amidst the darkness, his staff and sword flashing as he confronted a Nazgul atop its winged mound. Suddenly, a great cry went up from the center of the battlefield. There, amidst the chaos and destruction, stood Aragorn, facing off against Sauron himself. The Dark Lord, now in corporeal form with the ring's power fully restored, towered over the heir of Isildur. Their duel was a sight to behold, a contest of light against darkness, hope against despair. Sauron's mace crashed down with earth-shattering force, but Aragorn was quicker, more agile. He ducked and weaved, striking at every opportunity. And the final one arose. Aragorn found an opening. With a mighty thrust, he plunged Anduril into the Dark Lord's chest. A blinding light erupted from the wound, and a terrible scream rent the air. The Dark Lord's form began to crumble, his physical form dissolving into ash. But I knew the fight wasn't over yet, for there, at the edge of the battlefield, stood a figure I knew all too well. Frodo, or what was left of him. The One Ring had chosen its new master. I knew in that moment that our final test had come. A battle not just for Middle-earth, but for my friend's very soul. We fought, our blades clashing in a dance of light and shadow. With every strike, I felt my heart breaking anew. As we struggled, I spoke to him, reminding him of the Shire, of our journey, of the bond we shared. "Mr. Frodo," I called out, my voice cracking with emotion. "It's me, Sam. You're Sam. Don't you remember? I made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise to protect you, and I aim to keep it, even if it means protecting you from yourself." For a moment, I saw a flicker of recognition in those haunted eyes. It was enough. With a heavy heart and tears in my eyes, I struck the final blow. Frodo, my dear Frodo, fell before me, the ring slipping from his grasp. I caught him in my arms, and I saw the familiar features of my old friend emerge. "Sam, I'm so sorry. I wasn't strong enough." "It's all right, Mr. Frodo," I choked out. "You carried that burden further than anyone else could have, and you're back now. That's all that matters." "You were right, Sam," he said, a sad smile on his lips. "There was some good in this world worth fighting for. I'm sorry I forgot that, but luckily you never did." As the light began to fade from his eyes, Frodo smiled one last time. "I'm glad you're with me, Sam," he whispered, "here, at the end of all things." "Always, Mr. Frodo," I said, fighting back tears. Around us, the battle had ceased. All eyes turned to this final reunion. Frodo reached up, his hand trembling, and touched my face. "My dear Sam, you did it. You saved me." I clasped his hand in mine, my tears falling freely now. As the light began to fade from his eyes, Frodo gripped my hand tightly. "Tell me about the Shire one last time, Sam," he pleaded. And there, as the sun began to rise over a freed Middle-earth, Frodo Baggins, my master, my dear Frodo, breathed his last. As I sit here in Bag End, years after those dark days, I can't help but reflect on the journey that brought us here. Middle-earth has healed since that fateful day. As for us hobbits, well, we've returned to our simple lives, tending our gardens and enjoying our meals. The Shire is peaceful once more, the gardens are in bloom, and the sound of children's laughter fills the air. How do you pick up the threads of an old life? How do you go on, when in your heart you begin to understand there is no going back? We saved Middle-earth, yes, but at a cost that still echoes through the years. Yet, as I look out over the rolling hills of the Shire, watching new generations grow up in peace, I know that it was worth it. For in the end, it's not the great deeds of heroes that truly matter, but the small acts of kindness and courage that we show each day. When the wind whispers through the trees, I fancy I can hear Frodo's laughter. As I told him once, long ago, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. And I do, Mr. Frodo. I carry your memory with me always until the end of my days.